Movies are not only thrilling blockbusters, but they are also known to pull at fans' heartstrings. While people assume that the emotional depth of a superhero movie is pretty shallow, the cast and crew at Marvel Studios have managed to make some truly heartbreaking scenes in their cinematic universe.
Steve?
These have made us feel pretty sad sitting in the cinema, but we always know that ultimately it has made the story even better. From shocking deaths to startling character decisions, we've got a list for you of the 10 most heartbreaking Marvel scenes ranked. 10. Cassies All Grown Up. We start our list at the newest of all the MCU films, at Avengers Endgame. This movie will, of course, make it into the top 10 again down the line, but we first got to talk about a scene that took us by surprise and was incredibly heartbreaking for a variety of reasons. Endgame starts pretty much with a 5-year time jump, which changes a lot about the world. One of the things we didn't even think about is how that affects the characters that are gone in the snap or for other reasons. Of course, everyone is 5 years older, but that doesn't make a huge difference, right? Unless it's a kid, in which case 5 years is a long time. For Ant-Man, who has been stuck in the quantum realm for those 5 years, it was a huge shock to come back into a much older world, especially since it only seemed like 5 minutes to him.
That's me. Can you buzz me in?
What was truly heartbreaking, though, was to return to his home and his daughter after all that time, who is now much older. The relief that she is alive, but the realization that he has missed some crucial years of Cassie's life as she has grown, is a really heartbreaking moment, and one beautifully played by Paul Rudd. It's a look that we'll never forget, and an interesting one to bring to this list. 9. Steve going into the ice. Steve Rogers, heading for certain death as he hurtles into the ocean, is an iconic image. He takes one last look at the picture of Peggy Carter before he hits the water. Peggy, who's on the other end of the radio call, says one last word to him before he plummets into the depths of the sea.
Steve?
It's a crucial part of Captain America's character, demonstrating his bravery and his sacrifices for humanity. It's also a point that is returned to again and again. Without that decision, Captain America would never have been frozen and brought into the modern world. He would never have been a hero again, and most importantly, he maybe would have moved on. But this heartbreaking moment is paid off in the finale of Endgame, where Steve goes back in time to be reunited with Peggy again, making this heartbreaking moment even more bittersweet as he's had to live so long without her, but finally got what he deserved, a happy ending. 8. You killed my mom. This next pick comes from the Guardians of the Galaxy franchise and is a moment that is built up over both films. In the first Guardians outing, it's revealed that Peter's mom died when he was young due to cancer. It's a sad moment and one that he hadn't quite come to terms with until the end of the film. In Volume 2, however, this is all flipped on its head. Quill meets his father, Ego, for the first time, and they get along well. That is, until his evil plan has been revealed. This alone puts the two at odds, although it's not quite enough for Star-Lord to do something drastic to confront him, until Ego tells him that it was him that put the cancer in his mother's brain. It's a heartbreaking moment, watching the grief and anguish on Quill's face before he blasts his own dad to smithereens. Without the combination of the writing in both films, this would not have been nearly as powerful, much like in number 7. 7. Yondu's Death. Writer and director James Gunn managed to deliver another heartbreaking moment in Volume 2 of the saga, with the death of a major character. With Gunn willing to take such a big risk, Yondu's death was surprising but meaningful. The two films took us on a journey that taught us to understand Quill and Yondu's relationship better. By the time it came to Yondu to sacrifice himself for Peter, there were tears in our eyes. For a side character, Yondu was allowed to have a full arc that ended in redemption for his misdeeds. It's quality writing which manages to make a character like this so beloved, and it was heartbreaking to see him gone, just as audiences truly connected with him.
I'm Mary Poppins, y'all!
Unlike some of the other deaths on this list, he was gone too soon, and there was so much more to do with Yondu. 6. Gamora's Death. Another Guardian on this list, although this death takes place during Avengers Infinity War, it's one of the biggest scenes in the whole film and is crucial to the plot. In order for Thanos to gain the Infinity Stone, he must sacrifice that which he loves. In this case, it's his daughter Gamora. Over so many films, their relationship has been explored in great detail, so it makes it more heartbreaking in some way that Thanos would actually lose the only thing he loves in the world. It's a terrible scene as well, to lose such a great character with the film powerfully delivering on the death with a huge score and then a moment of silence. It's well put together and produced quite a few tears in fans. 5. Cap versus Iron Man. Not a character death, but the death of a friendship sits at number 5. Steve Rogers and Tony Stark disagree on a lot. They always manage to bring things back together though and work with each other for the greater good. In Captain America: Civil War, that all changes though. With Steve protecting his best friend Bucky and Stark seeking revenge for Bucky killing his parents, the two are finally at brutal odds with each other. The film sets up a much more political divide, but once it gets personal, there's no going back. The fight between the two is vicious and saddening to watch, after audiences have viewed these two go to hell and back together. Once Cap has won the fight, Tony telling him to drop the shield is a game changer and one that reflects in future films. It's not until Endgame that the two reunite and we finally get a fitting conclusion between the two of them. 4. Black Widow's death. The death list just keeps on coming, and this time for a character that has been a crucial part of the MCU for some time. Black Widow has been a mainstay in the Marvel movies since Iron Man 2 and has made her presence felt. She's an original and core member of the Avengers and has redeemed herself from assassin to a bona fide hero. It felt like her journey was complete once we got to Avengers Endgame, as after spending 5 years trying to keep the chaos maintained, she finally had one more job to do. Sacrificing herself to get the Soul Stone and protect Hawkeye, Natasha died a hero and had a very fitting conclusion to her arc. Shot similarly to Gamora's death, this was even more heartbreaking because of the history of the character and Clint's sorrow at her demise. It's a touching scene and incredibly memorable. 3. The Snap. If we're being honest, Infinity War is really defined by its end scene. It's a moment which shocked the world and had people yelling at each other about it for some time. It featured the heartbreaking deaths of many major characters and a moment between Tony and Peter Parker which brought tears to our eyes.
I don't feel so good.
You're all right.
I don't know what's happening. I don't know.
We're of course talking about the Snap, which devastated the Avengers and made sure that Thanos was the first villain to truly defeat the team. It set up Endgame gloriously and made sure we left the cinemas completely dazed. It was a brave decision to have us say goodbye to so many lovable characters, although this made the finale of The Last Avengers feel even more momentous once they had all returned. 2. Tony Stark's death. Of course, Endgame also had a funeral vibe to its finale, but for different reasons. To finally defeat Thanos, it took the sacrifice of Tony Stark to end it all. Iron Man is the DNA of Marvel Cinematic Universe ever since he kicked everything off with the first Iron Man film. Robert Downey Jr. has been a great representative of the franchise, so it was truly moving to say goodbye to him and his character. With his family mourning him and his best friend Happy clearly very sad about his departure, it's a somber tone for the ending, although this is picked up by what follows. The death itself is obviously heartbreaking, but it may be the funeral that really got us in the feels. It's a devastating loss for many characters and portrays the end of an era. Tony's snap, accompanied by the
I am Iron Man
catchphrase, is an iconic way to go out. 1. Stan Lee Tribute. Taking things into the real world for our last pick, this isn't so much a scene as it is a collection of moments. The death of Stan Lee was an incredibly difficult event for those at Marvel Studios to come to grips with. The man behind some of comics' most iconic characters had left his mark all over the films, especially with his amazing cameos.
Are you Tony Stank?
To say goodbye to the real-life hero, Marvel ran an intro to Captain Marvel which was completely different to the normal Marvel Studios logo, complete with all of Stan's great cameos from across the MCU. It's a really sad moment, but uplifting in some ways to pay tribute to the Marvel chief. His cameos in both Captain Marvel and Endgame also have a quality not quite felt in his other film appearances, with Endgame putting him in makeup to make him look like the Stan of old back in the 70s. It was a nice way to finish his roles in the franchise. You'll be sorely missed, Stan. Excelsior. So what do you think? Is there another moment which is more heartbreaking? Let us know in the comments below or on socials.